week's episode of The Money Drill, the show that's committed to helping drill down to the reliable retirement solutions for you. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley, and I'm joined by Erik Morgan. He is the president of Retirement Financial Group. Erik, it's so good to see you again. What's going on in your world?
Oh, just kids and more kids.
Yes. You have your hands full.
Always doing something. My daughter recently started a dog washing business. She's 9 years old.
Dog washing?
Yes,
wow.
Dog washing business. So she came to us with a business plan, everything. I mean, laid it out for me.
Wow.
And I was so proud of her. And so she's busy, washing dogs and,
That's awesome.
As a 9-year-old trying to make a little bit of money and
right.
teaching capitalism at an early age, which is always interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
well, good. I know you're never a dull moment at the Morgan house,
never
right?
a dull moment. No, ma'am.
Well, we have a juicy, jam-packed show for you today. It's been said that when it comes to the success of your retirement, it's not so much to do with how much income you've saved up over your lifetime, although that is important and can be an important factor, but it's how you convert that money into an income for yourself that's going to last you for the rest of your life. And that's what today's show is dedicated to. So, Erik, I want to start by asking, when you create a retirement plan for someone, where do you even start? Where do you begin this process? And how do you help folks shift from that accumulation phase of trying to build as much wealth as possible to then converting it into an income stream that's going to last them for the rest of their lives?
Oh, for sure. That's always a great question. One of the things I always start out with is to help people understand that it is a different phase of life. There is a massive difference from your years of working where you're putting in, you have that income from your employer. You're putting in, they're putting in. If there was a match, you might have a pension they're contributing to as well. So you're putting in, and that money is just growing and growing. There might be a loss based on the market, but then it comes back, and you're constantly buying the market. And so far, that money hasn't had to do anything for you in terms of other than try to grow.
Right.
But once you retire, you become self-employed. And so I try to help paint that picture up front in our meetings, right? Help them understand that there is this difference, right? And your money is being asked to do something that it's never done before. And so there has to be some growth aspects along with some income aspects. There has to be a balance. And so one of the things that I really have been shifting in terms of the way I do things is really trying to understand, what is your purpose in retirement, right? I think for so long, people have worked for 40 years.
Yes.
And that really becomes like family to them, They're used to showing up, they're working their 12 hours, or showing up and going to the office, doing whatever their role is, whatever their function is. And they really would spend more time there a lot of times than they would at the house.
And therefore it becomes such a huge part of your identity.
So huge, right?
Yep.
So they leave that, and I don't know these statistics specifically, but I would say probably 75% of my clients, whenever they leave, they don't really regain purpose. And what I mean by that is, they go do things with the grandkids, which is awesome. We want them to go do that. Yeah, they do some traveling, but to really identify the purpose in their retirement. What do you, your last 25 years, what legacy, what mark are you going to want to leave on society on the next 25 years while you're still here, on your family, on your kids, on your grandkids? It's never, there's a saying that you never stop raising your kids, right? And so whenever you're 65 and your son or daughter's 45, there's still so much wisdom that you can impart.
Absolutely.
Don't lose the purpose of being a mom or a dad, right? Of contributing back to the things that matter, church, all these activities.
Yes.
So really identify that purpose. And that's really been a more recent shift for us in the last few months. We've changed our questionnaires. We've changed things that we ask up front to understand what that purpose is. And then we ask what their goals are and what their habits are. Because, if someone comes in and they say, I'm not going to buy a new car, then the next question generally is, how many new cars have you owned? How often do you buy new cars throughout your life? Oh, but every 3 years. That pattern does not change. That behavior doesn't shift all of a sudden because you're retired, right?
I mean, there's some habits that are hard to break, right?
Correct, and that's one of them, right? Your spending habit, unless there's a drastic something happens, right? It doesn't change. And so we have to account for those things into the plan.
Right.
So we ask those things. So we want to understand them better as a family unit. Which one, the husband or the wife, which one makes decisions? I think so often we look to the male, right? Or the guy that's worked for 40 years. But in the case of my parents, the case of my in-laws, if I looked to my dad, whenever it was my mom and my dad, or now I look to my father-in-law, he couldn't tell me anything about their finances.
Yep.
and he would make no decision about finances. My mother-in-law does that. So I think really incorporating the family unit is really important.
So important, yep.
And even now, trying to understand where their kids at, because their kids need to be involved. We've talked about this life deal, right? Where at some point, the Lord's going to call you home, and your kids are going to have to deal with this stuff. So looking at ways to get them more involved in this process, to get to know them, so that all that stuff can be uniform and consistent throughout the planning. I think it's really important. So that's one of the first things we do. Sit down, get a good picture of who they are as a person, as a family, what their purposes are, what their goals are. Before we it's really an interview, a fact-finding. And some of that, Kristin, doesn't always come out meeting one.
Sure.
So we build a plan, and then that plan is adapted based on as we get to know them, as trust is developed. I have a client.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I have a client now that she buys my kids clothes. She knows me now. She's a widower, and we try to. It's just really building that trust, building that relationship with each other, and those vulnerabilities will come out, and these true purposes will start to find themselves.
Well, it just got me thinking, and what I was going to ask you is, how often have folks said to you, wow, no one's ever asked me that before, or no one, I've been working with a financial advisor, I've never had this kind of conversation about myself before. Does that happen?
It does, but not in the way that you think. It's generally from why are you asking these questions?
Right.
It's more of there's this guard up, and then I explain to them kind of why we go through this process. And like I said, I haven't always done this. This is kind of new for our firm in the last 6 to 8 months.
It's an added value.
It's an added value.
Yeah.
So, we really, part of our rebranding, our changing the name, we talked about that recently, on another show, was to know exactly, we want people to know exactly what we did. And what we do is retirement planning. That's who we are. That's not our core.
You're a retirement planning specialist.
That's all we do.
Yep.
Right now, yes, we do help people that are 35, that are still working with their 401ks. We give advice, all those types of things. But our bread and butter, our niche is that specific thing, decumulation, retirement planning, and all the things that go around with that. And so as that skill develops, we've been in the business combined 30 years, my business partner and I. So as those skills develop, we hone that skill. We dial in to be a little bit more personal, to be a little bit more purposeful.
Yep.
Just like our name, a little bit more purposeful in who we are and what we do. I think that's just really important. But the answer to your question is, it's really this wall of why are you asking those questions? That's the initial reaction. Which it tells me that they haven't been asked those questions before.
Yes. Yeah. But then I'm sure part of that process is helping folks dream again. I think, to your point, we spend so much of our lives working and don't give ourselves permission to dream. And really, when you retire, it can be what you want it to be.
The world is your oyster at that point.
And then you get to help people figure out financially how they can make those dreams a reality.
That's right.
That's just awesome.
It's so important.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know we got to bring it back to income, right? Yep. Because that's what we started off the show talking about, and generating this income for yourself. The reality is you have to consider various options of how you're going to generate income for yourself. And I know one of the areas that you really excel is also in the area of pension. So whatever direction you want to take it, but I'm just excited for you to share with folks about these options.
I think the thing is having investment accounts that can produce that income for you, right? So my brain works in buckets, okay? So say you have $1 million. My brain's going to work in thirds. So this third does this job, this third's for this, and this third's for that, right? Or a fifth, or however I want to break it up for that individual, but it works in buckets. And so, we talk through how can this bucket be safe yet provide income, right? And so during those rising interest rate environments like we've had last year and still in this year a little bit, we've gotten a good pop or a good increase on CD rates, on bond yields as well. And so building out, while cash is great, we have a lot of cash. We want to take that cash and reinvest it. We don't want to be caught with having just all cash and no exposure to anything else. So we want to start doing this with a laddered CDs or laddered bonds. So we're building these ladders 5 years out to where across the board, we know what income we can predict for this third or this whatever allocation percentage is going to be doing this amount of money. And there's safety of principal. There's FDIC insurance. There's all those things. But in addition to that, there's other things out there as well. And we're going to get into pensions, we're going to get into annuities, all that type of stuff. But there's so many things out there. Structured notes, that's a new one, right? I say new to the retail investor, to the normal folks. But we buy these structured notes that can, it follows an index or it follows a stock. And based on the performance of that stock or that index, it'll produce an income for you, a yield for you. Yield is huge, right?
Yep.
I have some of these structured notes paying 2.5% a month, right?
Wow, yeah.
Tied to Tesla and Apple, right?
Right.
And there's so much more that goes into this. And if you're wondering, how is your portfolio stacking up for income? If that's something that you're not sure really how it generates income, or can it be generating more? I saw a client the other day with some Edward Jones statements and other companies, and kind of come in, and he had great income producing assets from the perspective of good muni bonds, good bonds yielding 3%. Now those same bonds or new bonds are yielding 5%, right? So let's go ahead and make that transition out. Is your portfolio where it needs to be? Are you getting the income that it can produce, right? How is it stacking up? If you're wondering what that looks like for you and where you're at, schedule a meeting with myself or Clark. Just call us, come in for that complimentary meeting. Let us sit down with you, let you meet the team. The team is great, both locations, Nederland and Beaumont. We could not function without these ladies. So we sit down with us, and we'll walk through, we'll identify your goals, your habits, your purpose, and then we'll identify your plan and what that looks like for you as a family, as a person, and as a whole unit.
Erik, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, we are going to take a quick commercial break, but that number to call in order to get your complimentary written financial plan is on the bottom of your screen, 866-688-2591. You're also welcome to take out your smartphone. Simply scan that QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few simple questions, and then a member of the team will reach out to you and connect with you in order for you to come in and have your complimentary appointment that way as well. When we come back, if you have a pension, you don't want to miss this segment. I'm going to ask Erik, how do you go about deciding how to generate income from that pension? Do you take the lump sum amount or do you take the annuity payment option? Stay with us. More after this.
I'm an engineer by degree, and so I was working for ExxonMobil coming out of college, and then went to Motiva or Shell after ExxonMobil and spent a few years there. And I ended up working just a ton of hours. Loved my job, loved the people. I love what I did, but two things were kind of the catalyst that kind of pushed me on. One was, I had 2 kids at the time, and I would go to work at 5 a.m. I would get home 5, 6 p.m. They were young, so they were going to bed early, and so there was very limited time I would get to see them in the evenings. And 2 days a week, due to our church activities, I didn't get to spend any quality time with them at all. That coupled with my mom passing away at a young age of 52, just weeks after my dad retired. Those two things coupled together, the lack of time with my own children that I was seeing as a progression, and then my mom passing away, said it's time for a change. I don't want to do this anymore. Honestly, early on, I thought I was crazy. I was like, why did I leave that great job to start all over again? And I just realized that I didn't want to spend my whole life working behind the refinery gates. I'd rather take the skills the Lord had given me to go help people like my mom and dad maybe retire sooner so they could spend more time together.
Well, welcome back to the Money Drill. I'm Kristin Oakley here with Erik Morgan, President of Retirement Financial Group, and we are talking today all about income planning for your retirement. And Erik, one of the things I know you are a specialist in are pension plans, understanding pensions, and that has a lot to do with your background. So touch on that just briefly, and then I'm going to go into my first question for you.
For sure, kind of what, pensions, with my background, I was in oil and gas. I was part of the plan.
Yes.
Right, and so I always evaluated them, try to understand them, try to, as an engineer, I like to know the intricate details of everything. And they're not the easiest information to go find out. So I spent a lot of time researching, understanding them whenever I was at Exxon, whenever I was at Shell as well. And so it gave me a really good grasp on those two, which also set me up for all the other pension plans around the area.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that you're able to help folks navigate through those complexities. So obviously one of the big decisions for those of you that are watching that have a pension need to make is when it comes time to take that money, do you take it as a lump sum or do you take it as an annuity payment? So can you break down those two options and
For sure.
walk folks through that decision?
Really there's two types. And so whenever people hear the word annuity, that kind of, in some ways, it's a good sound to them. In some ways, it's a bad sound, depending on their experience with annuities.
Right.
An annuity with a pension fund, okay, is very specific. It is a lot of things affect it. For example, the IRS segment rates. So every pension in 2022 decreased in value, no matter your years of service increased because you kept working. The value decreased because of the interest rate. They're tied to the interest rate. So, for example, Chevron Phillips. If you're going to retire in the first quarter of this year, they're going to look back at the third quarter of last year.
Oh, wow.
Rates.
Yeah.
Second quarter, fourth, so forth,
Right.
so on. And so interest rates play a big role. So as these interest rates rose, the pensions devalued, which affected their lump sum. Now, what it did not affect is their annuity payment, right? Their annuity
Interesting,
payment's kind of
yeah.
locked in, if you will.
Right.
And so, and every plan's a little different, but this,
For this
these
example.
are generalized things.
Right.
Right. So basically, you have to look at, should I take the annuity? And if I take it, should it be single life? Should it be 100% joint and survivor? Should it be 5-year certain or 10-year certain? There's these multiple different triggers that you could pull. That's on the annuity side. If you take the annuity, what you have to know is that upon your passing, it goes to a spouse. Okay, but it ends there. Right? Unless you take the single life. If you take the single life, it ends with you.
It ends with you, right?
Like
so then your
you
spouse
pass
will
away,
get nothing.
you
Right.
get nothing.
Yeah.
If you get 50-50, there's a different formula. But nonetheless, it ends with either the death of you or the death of you and your spouse. Okay? And once, God forbid you retire, you have, a pension that's lump sum value is $500,000, $700,000.
Right.
You take 2 payments out of it, annuitize it, take 2 payments, and you both pass away in a car crash. All that money,
It's
the
gone.
kids do not get.
It goes back to the insurance company. Or,
It goes back to the pension fund. That's right.
In this
which
case,
is funded by
Right.
the company itself.
Yep.
And so that's a big disadvantage to the annuity. I think the annuity, why people like it is because it provides, in their mind, stable and consistent cash flow.
It's mailbox money,
It's
knowing you're
mailbox
getting
money.
that
That's
check
right.
every single month,
Which
right?
retirement is about peace of mind.
Yes.
Everyone's different. Some people want the peace of mind. That money comes every month, and they say, well, between that and Social Security, and maybe their wife or their husband worked as a teacher. So they have Social Security, they have TRS, and they have this pension. They say, all of my other assets, I don't have to worry about. If they go down, they go down. If they go up, they go up. Kind of that same idea like it was whenever they were working. So they're used to that stable
Getting that
income.
check.
They
Yep.
don't have to worry about what the market's going to do
Right.
for their livelihood to depend on it. Right? That's just extra money for them, if
Right.
you will.
Yep.
Which is a great deal, a great feeling to have, a great place to be. And so what we do in those moments where the client says, I want to take that annuity, options that you can consider are, well, maybe we go get a life insurance policy on your life for the sake of your children. That way, in the event something happens, the life insurance is paid, and it's a tax-free basis, right?
Right. So that
Which
money
is
will
super
pass
helpful.
to them.
Pass to them tax-free.
Right.
And so, they don't get the lump sum annuity or the pension that you would have gotten,
Sure.
but they get this tax-free death benefit life insurance policy, which is one way to kind of get around that perspective of passing money to the children.
Yes.
I think other things that people don't think about is they say, well, my pension's going to always be there. Well, I want to tell you, it might not be, right? You think about, here are some over the last 20 years. So if we're thinking a normal retirement is between 20 and 30 years. So in the last 20 years, these are 10 companies whose pensions have failed. United Airlines, Bethlehem Steel, Delta Airlines, Pan American, Nashville Steel, Delphi. Point being, very much traffic or airline specific. It's still specific. However, we are in an industry, in an area of oil and gas, and there's constantly new regulations being forced on oil and gas. There's new demand being placed on oil and gas to be cleaner, to run more efficient, to have less emissions, right? And as those regulation increases, right, will companies become less profitable? There's this big push for electric vehicles. I'm not going to say unfortunately, how they're going about it, I don't think is the right method. My point being, as margins decrease, right, the company has to make a decision. Do I fund the pension or do I fund operations?
Yes.
Do I fund the pension or do I fund the stock for dividends, right? Because if they keep the stock or the shareholders happy, then their value stays up, right?
Yep.
If the pension fund fails, it just fails, right?
Well, this is why we've seen such a decline in pensions. I mean, I think the most recent stat I heard is only 4% of Americans actually have a pension because companies weren't prepared for people living as long as that they were, or preparing to pay out for the rest of these people's lives.
Yeah, they used to live, but you retired at 60 by about 75 to 78 range.
Right.
Now it's, 80. You have an 85% chance if you're married for one of you to live into the 90s.
Yes.
Well, that's 15 to 20 years pending.
Right.
Longer payments, right? And so the company has a really vested interest for you to take the lump sum. There are some companies that used to say you can only take the annuity. Now you can take the lump sum. So point being, there are many, many things into consideration, individual circumstances. If you're looking at retirement and you're looking at, how do these interest rates affect my lump sum? Should I take the annuity? Should I take the lump sum? What options do I have? We know how to evaluate those options. We look at it. The average annuity payout to lump sum is about 17 years. And the industries around East Texas, Southeast Texas. Let us look at that for you. Let us come up with that plan. Let us make sure it fits your goals, your habits, your purpose, and to ensure that your family is set up as not only individual for you, but also as a unit. And let us help you do that.
Erik, wise words. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise on that. I always learn something new, and I know there's so much value for you watching at home. Again, we encourage you. This is a great opportunity. We are going to take another quick commercial break, but call the number on the bottom of your screen, 866-688-2591. We know you have questions about your retirement. Maybe you are wondering how to navigate your pension. Erik and the team at Retirement Financial Group would love to help and serve you. Call that number, and we will see you right after this break.
Our team, both at the Nederland and Beaumont locations, are all top notch. They love people. That was one of the main criteria that we wanted. We wanted someone that loves people and that would engage with the people well, our clients well, and make sure the clients know that they are cared for the moment they walk in the office, the moment they leave. I've actually asked my wife a few times, remind me again exactly why I got into a career field where people's livelihood depended on me. But then I think about my dad. I think about, the many couples, the many clients that we have where there's a real relationship now where they call me and we talk, we're friends, and we fellowship together, and the change that I've seen in them for the good and for myself as well.
Welcome back to the Money Drill. We are drilling down today on all things income related to your retirement. And specifically, we've been having a great discussion about pensions, how to take your pension. We've kind of covered already the pros and cons of annuitizing and taking that annuity payment option. Talk to us now a little bit about the lump sum payment option that folks have available to them.
For sure. I think the lump sum is becoming more and more popular, right, with people. And I think a lot of it is, we talked about this earlier, you and I, about we're both control freaks.
Yes, we are.
Right? So the lump sum allows you to be a control freak. It allows you to take possession of your dollar, right? And so you take that $500,000 or whatever the value is, $200,000, doesn't matter. You take that and you become in control of it. So what do I do with it, right?
Yes, because that's a big increase of money, and you have to be a good steward of it,
correct,
right?
Because you can't go buy the Ferrari with it, right? I mean, you could, but you won't have it left.
Right.
So what do you do with this lump sum? And so there's so many things, right? There's benefits of taking it as a lump sum pension from now you can, if you want to legacy plan, you can plan some of that for your kids to give away, right? You can increase or decrease income as you wish. Have some clients because their spouse has a TRS, for example, and they both have, or he has Social Security. Well, they're making $5 or $6 grand a month. They're living very comfortable on that, and they just take their income, or they take distributions when they feel like they need it. The month's low. Erik, can I get $5,000 this month? We're going on vacation. So it allows you to control what you need and when you need it, right? It allows you to pick where it's invested, right? Work with your advisor to understand the risk. Whenever the pension fund is in play and you're living and you're basing your livelihood on that, are they funding the pension? Are they investing it correctly? Now, I think most pension fund managers are pretty sharp. I mean, they probably know a lot more about the market than I do, but my point being, they also have a lot more demand, right? Because they have a lot of people. If the employer's not putting in and the people are living longer, all these things factor into that fund.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that there's also limited investment options versus, within those planned funds that the pension is using versus if you have it on your own and you choose how you.
Correct. Like you're limited to whatever that pension fund manager wants to do.
Exactly.
Versus for you can say, I want some here, some here, and some here, pending your risk tolerances, pending your preferences.
Right. Your individual needs.
Your individual needs, right? And so it's more tailored, it's more custom.
Yes.
Right. And so we like the lump sum. However, we don't always circle that as the only option either, right?
Yes.
There has to be evaluated as a fiduciary perspective. But it sounds like, for most people, whenever I talk to them about legacy planning, and what I see from most folks is that everyone has that inner control freak in them, and they want a little bit of that control, And so we give them that option. We kind of set it up for them, and here's how we're going to make you be in control of your own assets.
It's so smart. And I know that you said typically that's the recommendation for most folks, but again, it depends on the individual situation.
That's right.
I mean, sometimes it could be possible that the annuity option would be better for someone, right?
It very well could be, and I think that's really where it gets down to, whenever you're meeting with an advisor, to let them really understand your purpose and your goals, right? And that way and so that advisor needs to take the time. We take the time to understand those things. And sometimes we recommend one and they choose two, right? The option A over option B. And that's your choice, right? Ultimately, the advisor works for you. They need to listen to you and do what you ask them to do, right? Even though we might provide guidance against it, we still need to adhere to what you're wishing.
Absolutely.
To a degree,
yeah,
right?
For sure.
And so if you're out there and you're wondering, what should I take? What is best for me? What is best for my wife or my husband or my kids? Come see us. Call us. Call that number on your screen. Let us work with you. Meet our team. Our team cares deeply about the people that we work for. You are our clients. They are our clients. We work for you. We want to serve you. So let us meet with you, see what option is best for you, lump sum or annuity. How will the interest rates affect you going forward? How can we be of service to you? Call us and let us help you.
Eric, thank you so much.
You
Again,
bet.
that number to call is on the bottom of your screen, 866-688-2591. Thank you so much for watching. We love you, Southeast Texas, and we will see you next week.